Hello everybody, my name is Mark Evans and I'll be your instructor for Business 217, Organizational Behavior. I'd like to take just a few minutes and welcome you to our class. For the next 10 weeks we'll be working together and learning a variety of topics, as organizational behavior is a very broad subject. Each week of the 10 weeks we'll be talking about a different subset of organizational behavior. We may be talking about motivation, we may be talking about hiring, we may be talking about organizational structure, the environment, and so forth. So there's a lot of different topics within organizational behavior that we'll be dealing with, and so I hope you'll enjoy it and have a lot of fun with it. Now, let me give you some directions and some guidance on some housekeeping issues, if you will, on how the class works. One of the first things that you should do is take a look at the syllabus and make sure that you have the right textbook and that you understand the expectations of the class. Of particular note in my mind is the attendance policy. I know that a lot of times students get caught up with work, family issues, and that kind of thing, and it can be kind of hard to keep up. I have a late policy there that you can look at, and certainly don't mind working with students in terms of late work in some cases, but you need to understand that the teacher has no control over your attendance. So if you're missing time and you email me and say, hey, can I have extra week to catch up or something like that, I'm most likely going to tell you, yeah, you can do that, but I can't fix your attendance if you mess that up. So keep that in mind. We have no control over that, okay? So I just want you to be aware of that. One of the other things that I notice students have a lot of problems with is grades. Look at the syllabus and look at the grading section on research papers, assignments, discussions, etc. You'll notice that different types of work that you have to do will have different grade weightings. I don't have your syllabus right here in front of me right this minute, but a research paper may be 25% of your final grade. Assignments may be 10% of your final grade, things like that. So check the syllabus and look at that. Sometimes people do very well in their discussions and their assignments, but they don't do well on their tests or their research paper, and then they don't understand, why am I getting a grade that's not as where I think it ought to be. So most of the time, it's going to be things like the weight of the grade. And one of the biggest things I see people get in trouble with on online education is just simply not turning in work and getting zeros. And sometimes that's because you can't keep up. Sometimes it may be because you're having navigation issues or what have you. So here's kind of the way I kind of approach that process. Each week you have deadlines, or you have due dates that things are due, okay? And I say do have a late policy. But once that week is passed, if you haven't turned in the work for that week, I put zeros in the grade book for those things that you haven't done. That doesn't mean you got a zero for the course. That means you got a zero for that week. And when you see that zero, that means I don't have that work, you haven't done it, or there's a miscommunication somewhere. You should go check to see if you've done that work, okay? If you haven't done it, you do it, you turn it in, and then I change the zero and grade you accordingly, okay? So if you see a zero, that's my communications to you that you haven't turned something in or I don't have it, okay? Now, the only exception to the late work policy, and this is in the syllabus that you can see it, discussions and responses to discussions, you have one each week, and then twice that you talk to teammates, if you will, or classmates. You have to get those done in the week that they're due. There is no turning discussions or responses to others in late. The school policy, you can't do that. But assignments, quizzes, research papers, things like that, you do have a late policy that will help you. Likewise, final exam during the last week, that has to be done during the final week. There is no late policy allowing you to be late on the final exam, okay? In fact, I turned the final exam on about week 7 of the 10 weeks, so you really have 3 weeks that you could get the final exam done. All right, so I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Just keep in mind to watch the grade book, and if you have zeros, that means me and you have a problem and that you don't have the work turned in, or I didn't get it, or there's a problem right there somewhere, okay? And don't freak out when you do that. That's a communication tool, because what I've seen in the past is if people, we just, as teachers, if we just leave those blank and you're looking at your overall grade, it looks good, and then all of a sudden toward the end of the term we put the zeros in and you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? So I just want you to be aware of that, okay? During week 8, you have a research paper that's due, and there's complete instructions out there on the research paper. On week 3, you have an annotated bibliography that's due, and you should go out and read those instructions and ask questions there as well. The annotated bibliography goes hand in hand with the research paper, should be on the same subject, and if you do a good job on the annotated bibliography, there's less work to have to be done on the research paper. And so we can talk more about that as we get closer to it. There are quizzes each week based on the chapters that we're going over. And like I say, you have a final exam, and I'll turn that on early so that you have plenty of time to do the final exam. Quizzes are fairly short, and you can take the quizzes 2 times if you don't like the grade the first time. And I take the highest of the 2 grades, okay? So that kind of gives you an idea of some of that sort of stuff that we deal with. Let's say each week the class works basically the same. If you're not used to online, you should go on to the announcements, read my announcements, go to the discussions for that week, look at those discussions, answer the questions following the guidelines for discussion posts, and then you respond to 2 classmates following those same guidelines. Please pay attention to the guidelines for discussion posts, okay? Once you've done your discussions, you go to the course content for that particular week, like week 1. You open it up, you see all the instructions that you need to do for that week, what chapters to read. You'll see assignments like assignment 1 and assignment 2. You'll see like quiz number 1. You will see PowerPoints for that week. And you'll see a folder that has video resources from YouTube and other places that try to kind of give you a visual or a what do I want to say, movies that kind of match up with what we're learning. Because some folks read it and understand it, some folks like to see it, and so you can both read the chapter, read my notes and things, look at the PowerPoints, and you can also watch the videos to try to get a really, really good understanding of what we're talking about that week, okay? Now, before I wrap up, I want to let you know that the best way to get in touch with me is via email, or I prefer text messaging, and you have my contact information. I have 2 other jobs that I work, and I go to school as well, so I'm not always at my computer, and I'm not always where I can email or answer the phone. But I usually see my text messages very easily. So if you'll text me if you have questions, don't forget to tell me who you are, because I won't know what your phone number is, and I'll get with you as quick as I can. Okay. We'll have office hours each week, and I think they'll be posted on the syllabus and so forth. Okay. Finally, I just want to give you one more heads up in terms of discussion posts, assignments, things like that. I know there's a tendency for students to want to hurry up and get the assignment done, get it over with for that week, hurry up and get the discussion post done so that, okay, I can check it off my to-do list, I can get back to work, get back to my family, get back to my life until the next week. I want to encourage you to fully participate in the class, okay? And I kind of have a saying as far as discussions and assignments and so forth. Little comments get little grades. So read the guidelines for discussion posts and the assignments. If you engage a little bit in the class, you're going to get bad grades. If you engage fully in the class, there's no reason you can't get good grades, because the subject matter is not that hard. Okay. For an example, if we go out and we discuss the glass ceiling and why women can't promote, 1 or 2 sentences is not going to cut it in terms of getting you a good grade. As I said in the guidelines for discussion posts, it's a minimum 150 words with a reference APA cited in terms of what is supporting your position or your opinion and that kind of thing. And likewise, when you're discussing things with your classmates, It's not enough just to say, hey, Mark, I really agreed with your post. I really like what you had to say, and that kind of thing. It's okay to say that. That's certainly part of it, but you should add to the discussion. And I encourage you to look at the guidelines for discussion posts and the assignments in terms of minimum word counts, things like that, in order for you to get the highest grade possible. Okay? I don't want you to BS me, and I don't need long wrote out things just so that you can impress us with the writing. Say enough to express your opinion, support it with the research, and you can stop. But all those guidelines are out there for you to read, and you can certainly ask questions for me as we go through. So this is the first video. We'll do one a week, and I'll have office hours with you as well. I hope that you're going to enjoy the next 10 weeks, and I'll see you online in class.